Welcome to the Property Strategy Podcast. We are here with the one and only Jordan from Insight Property Finance. Jordan, lovely to see you.
Likewise, Joey. Good to see you again.
Mate, do you want to firstly give the listeners a little bit of an intro to yourself, more so professionally from a broking point of view, who you are, what you do, how long you've been doing it for?
Professionally?
Yeah, just professionally. Keep things purely professional. There's a whole side of Jordan that we won't get into.
Thank you, first and foremost, for the intro. So, company's called Insight Property Finance. We're a finance brokerage. We've been around since 2017.
I'm glad you know. I have no idea.
It's been a while.
Yep.
Good journey. Prior to that, I used to work at a bank, at a Big Four, doing a similar type of role in a business banker type of what was it called? Senior business banker, what it's called. Essentially doing the same thing as a mortgage broker, but dedicated for a bank for business clients.
How long are you doing that for, out of interest?
Doing that about 3.5 years.
Okay.
Probably 2.5 too long.
Yeah. Before you took the plunge?
Before I took the plunge.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, wish I took the plunge a bit earlier.
Yeah, everyone always says that.
Yeah, if all goes well.
Yeah, of course.
Lucky for me it did go well, but
yeah.
It was a good kind of learning platform to kind of understand everything. It was my first real lending role, and it was probably my first proper job, so good to experience the whole corporate life, which
nice.
Can have its ups and downs.
And downs, yes, definitely.
As you can probably imagine.
Yes,
as
absolutely.
you can probably agree. Personally.
Yes, I do agree, coming from a corporate background,
yeah,
absolutely.
Good fun. And then, I guess kind of got to a stage where I think I was like mid-20s, just above mid-20s, was doing quite well at the bank, had reached like top of my game at the bank, looked at different roles in the bank, included like middle management, things like that, realized wasn't really what I liked to do. Maybe a bit of a quarter life crisis at the same time.
I was going to say a bit too young for midlife, but yeah.
Oh, these days, midlife
That's
could
true.
be 20s.
That is
it's
true.
Scary, right?
I reckon I had a midlife crisis at 15.
Midlife now. I'm at midlife. They say like 38 is midlife now.
No, it's not.
Yeah, the average person's like mid-70s. So
nah, you'll go forever.
Yeah,
you'll go forever, I think.
So I think at that stage, just kind of looking at different options, considered. I think a lot of my friends at the time, they were like quitting their job, moving to London, be a bartender kind of thing.
Yeah, that whole lifestyle.
So that was one of them. Mortgage broking was another, and I guess staying at the bank and climbing the corporate ladder was another. It was a hard decision. Obviously, wanted me to do one thing, and
let me guess, that was corporate.
Yeah. She thought it was a good gig. Part of me wanted to do the London thing, and then I guess the sensible, or the less sensible maybe, was to quit your job and give it a crack
with $5 to your name or something like that.
About 7.
Yeah.
So,
around.
Yeah, gave that a shot, and I think what kind of really drew me to it was I liked being with the client. Like, I enjoyed that part of the job. The part of the job that I didn't like was when a client came to me, I wasn't able to offer them a solution because of the bank I worked for had a certain policy.
Gotcha.
But I might have had an idea that maybe if they went to another bank could help them. So that kind of gave me the shits. Also then when I learned about how the mortgage broking model worked, I initially thought it was kind of like too good to be true. Like most service providers, you go see an accountant, you go see a lawyer, you're paying for their time. Someone told me you go see a broker and the bank pays for their time, the client doesn't actually pay anything else, and they get the same rate, same fees if they went to the same bank. And I was like, that surely there's more to
There's
that.
got to be a catch, right?
Yeah, free lunch kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then when I kind of looked into it and learned about it a bit more, I was like, that sounds like, something that might make me feel a bit of a fulfillment, sleep better at night,
nice.
Rather than, making more money for the shareholders of some of these banks, which usually make a fair bit of coin.
Yeah, in the billions.
And And I had a few friends that kind of stepped out and they were doing quite well, and I was like, maybe give it a go, see how we go.
Nice. So where have you gone from, say, we've cast back to $7 in your account, Jordan, from 2017 to now? Obviously, the business has scaled up quite nicely, and you're servicing, I imagine, investors, home buyers, and the like across the country.
It's been a good journey. Life's very different now.
Yep.
For the better, I would say. When I actually left the bank, I had just settled on my first property, and I wanted to get the first home buyer's incentive at the time. So I actually moved out of home. So I was living at home rent-free for my entire life. Then I moved out of home, and then I couldn't afford the loan repayments by myself. So it was a 1-bedroom plus study. I don't know. Have you been to Erskine? No, you haven't.
I haven't. No.
Oh, you should have seen it.
Oh, did you sell it? Did you?
Probably the size of this studio, give or take. It was no, I haven't sold it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so it was it's a 1-bedroom plus study. The study was I think like 5 square meters.
That's a bedroom to some agents.
It had maybe a 40 by 20 size sunlight window, so not a proper window.
Yeah.
It didn't have a door, so it was a proper study.
Yeah.
But because I couldn't afford the loan repayment, I asked my friend to
I knew you were
move
going
in
to say
with me.
this. Wow. And someone was living in there.
And he took the main bedroom. Who's going to pay rent to live in a study, right?
True. So you lived in the study?
Yeah, so I think it was like, he was paying me like, I don't know, $350 a week. If I put it on the market, I probably would have got like 500, 600 at the time. And then I lived in the study.
Wow.
And the study was just big enough where if you put a double bed, at the end of the bed, there was like a built-in, kind of like a long table that kind of covered the length of the bedroom. And then I used that as kind of my office. So my bed and the
Wait, this is you starting out as a broker, working from there?
Yeah, this was day one. Yeah. So the end of the bed touched essentially the start of the table, and you had just enough space to fit in like
your legs
like this. Yeah. So it was so small that I had to put my clothes outside of the room. So there was like a shoe cabinet outside. That's where I'd put my clothes. And again, because there was no door, put like a makeshift kind of curtain. Yeah, curtain.
With a sheet? Or was it actually just a proper curtain?
It was about, I think it was like, I started with a towel and I realized the towel didn't kind of block out too much light. So I moved to a curtain. And I was there like 24 hours a day because I'd wake up. I wouldn't even roll out of bed. I'd be partially in bed and I could start my laptops on the end. And I'd work till, midnight, and then I'd go to sleep for 5-6 hours and then get up and do it again. And yeah, I probably did that for just under a year. But
wow.
Yeah, so I was just like head down, bum up, kind of give it a crack, see what I could do. And yeah, it did a lot better than I expected it. And again, if I knew that, probably would have left the bank a little bit earlier. But yeah, now I guess I've got a room with a door, which is nice.
That's positive.
Yeah. And I've got sunlight now.
And you sleep windows. Separate to work? Sometimes? I imagine you're probably still going to bed.
I do now. Now I've got an actual bedroom for work. Excellent. And I've got a room for to sleep, which is nice. So I've got a bit of difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Still in the same apartment, but times are different. And at the time also, because I think one of my fears was, I think coming from a bank, one of the things we would do is we would go almost like cold calling, door knocking to different businesses to try to win their business, right? And I felt, because I wore a Big Four bank badge, the barriers to entry, I guess the barriers to having a conversation weren't that high. Like most people were at least open to have a quick chat, right? And one of my fears was, because I think I looked relatively young.
Still do.
And younger back then. And I was kind of fearful that I wouldn't actually be able to get someone on board to even give me a shot.
Yeah. So
what I did was I went and took out a car loan.
Oh, God.
And I bought the cheapest AMG you could buy.
Right.
Just so I could kind of like, I was driving to like real estate open homes and things like that. So I wanted to be in like a decent car.
Just to look the look.
Yeah, you look the look.
Yeah.
So that hurt the cash flow as well. So everything else took a back burner, so food was...
Did that work? That strategy?
It did. I believe it did. I believe it. I think when, like these days, because it's not as much face-to-face, I think back then, I think it actually did have a decent impact. And I don't know about now, because like I don't really meet clients face-to-face now. Everything's virtual, right? And also we've got a bit of a brand now. We've got existing clients and things like that.
Referrals coming naturally.
Yeah. Whereas previously it was a lot more like the leads were a lot colder.
Yeah.
And I just felt that assisted a little bit. I don't know. It could have been in my head or my reason to just justify to get a nice car.
Probably. But I probably would have thought you were a wanker if we had met that way.
Yeah. So some dumb moves, but I think it put me in a position where I had a limited time to try to make it work. Otherwise, I'd go back
to the Big Four or to one of the Big Four companies.
Asking for a job.
Yeah. Well, that's a really, really cool story, because you often don't like hear the kind of the backstory from that perspective. It's a really good lens for some of our like younger listeners to hear that like it doesn't matter what profession you're in, there's always going to be that period of a hard grind, and it's never like you just walk straight in and have it all from day one. There's usually like a bit of a backstory, so it was nice to go kind of deep into that. So then we kind of met, not really, it must have been pretty early on into your business, and you must have only been in operation for a couple of years. I imagine you might have just upgraded from the bedroom office of Erskineville. So I reckon we must have met maybe 2018, maybe it might have even been 2017. It might have been when you just started then.
I moved out early 2018, so I did a year there, and then that's when I moved to good old Chinatown.
Yeah, so we must have met very, very early into your business. And for some of the listeners, I know that plenty of our partners that I've heard me say it 1,000 times over that I've got an absolute gun of a mortgage broker. This is Jordan, by the way, if you didn't pick it up already. So yeah, our story would have kind of kicked off around, I reckon, maybe 7 or so years ago.
We met through John. Right?
Yeah, we met through John, yeah.
And I met John through his mum.
Through his mum. Actually, you might have been at one of the
And I met his mum through her
boss. Yeah, but you might have been at one of the big four companies at the time and maybe just started to go out on your own.
Yeah, so it would have been super early.
Would have been very, very early.
Yeah, so I hit the whole Erskineville thing
Yeah, very well. You did. You did.
Yeah. And I think like that's how we kind of started. We just had like, a few clients where it was like from word of mouth that you might not expect, right? So,
well, even like think about like that connection that you just mentioned there. My best mate's mum's boss,
and
I ended up being the introduction to you.
Yeah, and we
like
helped
4
them
degrees
do
of
a couple
separation.
things, and and here we are.
Here we are.
8 years later.
8 years later. That's absolutely incredible. So if we kind of go back, and obviously, I mean, you had the I was going to say the privilege, probably not a privilege, of seeing my portfolio go from, I think you met me, I might have had one, maybe two. Although I definitely had 2 properties at the time, and you've been able to kind of see me go from there, and obviously being a very integral part of the whole process for me throughout. And I suppose you kind of seeing that on a ground level from lots of investors, especially having been in the game for 8 or so years now. You kind of imagine there would be many other investors who have gone from not even having a portfolio to now potentially being a few properties deep into their portfolio. Is that kind of fulfilling for you to see someone start from, say, no, and then they maybe, say, 3 properties deep, or you're seeing them now buy their dream owner occupier or something like that from your lens?
Yeah, 100%. And I think we are very much in a privileged situation where people are willing to share those kind of things with us. And
it's pretty daunting shit that people share.
Yeah,
with the broker, right?
Stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why I kind of said I felt I needed that validation up front, because like you're not going to go and give your ID, your pay slips, your financial position to like the guy that delivers mail to you,
exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Or just like someone that you don't know.
Even your best friend, you probably hide most of that stuff from.
Exactly, and especially these days with all the cybersecurity stuff going on. So I that was a big fear I had, that I was like, hey, like even if I'm somewhat decent at what I do, will I even get the opportunity to show people, right? But yeah, I think allowing us, like when clients kind of engage us and then we kind of go through that journey with them, it is very much a fulfilling thing. And knowing that we can potentially have, in some cases, a significant impact on the end result or where they can end up, definitely helps you sleep better at night. And then on top of that, knowing that we didn't charge them for it.
Yeah, that's the real kicker.
And that's really what drew me to the role. I was like, fuck, that's like...
Yeah.
That can't be real, right? So I was like, fuck, I found something that I think I'm somewhat decent at, I really enjoy, and I can do it for free. And on top of that, it's something that eventually everyone may need or will need at some point in their life. Yeah. Most people need finance, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm like, this is a service that everyone needs that's free. This is like too good to be true. Yeah. So that's a good gig.
That's like, I mean, even coming back to my own personal story, which I've shared probably 1,000 times over on different podcasts, but like, and I've told you this 1,000 times as well, like literally what you have done for my personal portfolio has been absolutely incredible. You've opened up doors that I didn't think would have been possible, spoken to banks and other brokers, and you kind of gone, oh, there's only so much I can do. And then all of a sudden you speak to Jordan and then there's this other opportunity that opens up, or I want to get into this. How can I make that happen? So I've called you probably 1,000 times the magician, the wizard, something along those lines. But it's it's something that I've personally really value the work that you've done for myself and also some of the family and friends that I know that you've helped me really, really personally. But with respect to that, and we're kind of now starting to talk about let's say, for example, the importance of the work that not necessarily that you do, but is as an investment savvy mortgage broker in general. We hear that term thrown around often these days. Like, what in your eyes is one of them, and I think you touched on it a little bit before as well, but what is one of the main reasons why it is so important to make sure that when you are looking to build out a portfolio that you do go and seek the opinion of a mortgage broker, and one that is kind of investment savvy as well, rather than either just walking straight into the branch or just going and speaking to your cousin's mortgage broker because they helped them settle a loan 3 years ago? Like, what's the value behind that? Yeah,
of course. I think my opinion would always be definitely use a mortgage broker. And
unbiased opinion.
Unbiased, absolutely unbiased. Even if I wasn't a mortgage broker, I would heavily
I'm not a mortgage broker and I encourage it.
I definitely encourage you as a mortgage broker. And the reason behind that is when you go to a bank, whichever bank it may be, your cousin's whatever, or some branch that you know someone at, or a branch that you've got your kiddie account from since you're 10 years old, right? Now, when you go to a bank, you're essentially hoping that bank doesn't mean no bank another bank. So you go to bank number one. Now, if you're very hands-on and you kind of know how things work and you've got the time, you may then go and find another bank. So you go to bank number 1, they say, sorry, Joey, can't help you. You then go to bank number 2. They may be able to help you, they may not. And then you go to bank number 3 and you may be willing to repeat that process, I don't know, 10, 15, 20
I don't know if you go that many, maybe 3 or 4 max.
So I've had some clients.
Really?
Yeah. They might approach like 6 or 7 before they give a mortgage broker a crack.
That's someone who's got some time, man.
Yeah. And then I guess on the flip side, how we work or how a mortgage broker works, and all this is essentially across the industry, when you go to a mortgage broker, majority of the work they do is before they actually choose a bank or get to a bank. Majority of what they do is they start with you, try to understand your situation the best they can. And then what they then do is they use their knowledge of all the different banks they have access to. And for most brokers, it's like 40, 50, 60 lenders to then find the bank that's tailored to you, right? So rather than going to a bank and hoping the bank fits you, the broker starts with you and they find the bank that fits you back to front. Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of like you work with the end in mind. And if you go to a broker and someone else goes to the same broker and then someone else goes to the same broker, the likelihood that broker is going to recommend the same bank to 3 clients is going to be relatively low because no 3 clients have the exact same requirements and no 3 clients have the exact same circumstances, right? Whereas if you have 3 clients to go to the one bank, then maybe that bank can help all 3, maybe they can only help 1 or 2 of 3, right? Then, like as I kind of said, on top of that, if that service is free, why go through the hassle yourself to then go through multiple banks? And then on top of that, even if you've got the time willing to go to 6, 7, whatever banks yourself, you may not have the industry knowledge and background that, say, you'd hope someone that does this on a daily basis would potentially have, right? So again, even if I wasn't a mortgage broker, very much an opinion, every client should be using a broker for those kind of above reasons. Yeah,
and I think that like the classic one is, like, and I see this kind of daily in the work that I'm doing at Game Plans, and you see that someone will come in and they'll go, for example, first home buyer, they've probably got that's when they've probably got the most amount of capacity that they may ever have. You've got whatever, 900 grand or 800 grand in terms of servicing, and you walk into one of the banks and can I get a loan? And the answer might be yes, but then it's well, have you thought about what you're looking to do after that? And are you thinking about the next acquisition, or what does this property do for the very next purchase after that? Whereas, and I don't want to generalize here, but in your experience, would you see that, say some of the typical lenders would just go, well, you've asked me, can I get a loan? And the answer is yes, I'm just going to go and get it. And I don't really care what that means for the next purchase.
I think, like most service industries, I don't think there's like a black and white answer. I'd say for majority, I would agree. Maybe the answer would be yes, but I'm sure there's bankers out there that might have a different kind of lens. They may have an investment portfolio themselves.
And that's maybe part of the reason why. Is it, in your opinion, also important to speak to a broker that maybe doesn't necessarily have to have an investment portfolio, but have a investment property knowledge and mindset and can understand? Because like if I'm just Joey walking off the street and I just want to go and get one loan versus I'm Joey and I want to build out a property portfolio, that's a different conversation that you would be having with that client, right?
Absolutely. And again, like I was saying, we work with the end in mind, right? So if the end is I want to buy this one property, or the end is I want to buy 5 properties, the pathway to get there should be different, right? Logically speaking.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I think on your point about like whether you'd want to use a broker that's kind of got that investment knowledge, I think absolutely. Our industry is very low barriers to entry. You can become a broker pretty easily. I think there's like 21 or 22,000 of us, and that's growing year on year. There's brokers in the industry that do it on a part-time basis. Like they're a plumber by day, and they might do this a couple of days a week.
Yeah.
There's brokers in our industry that have been around for 25 years, right? There's brokers in our industry that specializes in self-employed clients, specializes in first home buyers, specializes in investors. So you definitely want to kind of align yourself with someone that you believe is going to get you the outcome that you want. Now, unfortunately, again, like most service providers, you might not know what the outcome's going to be until you kind of go through that process. So similar to when you're choosing, I don't know, like a lawyer or an accountant or a buyer's agent, right? You would go through a bit of an interview process to kind of work out, hey, is this person a good fit for me? But then you do kind of have to almost trust the process a little bit to actually work out if it's actually going to get you to where you want to be. Like you might engage with someone and be like, oh, hey, this is the perfect fit for me. And then you go through the process like, actually, no, I was wrong, right? Or you might be like, actually, this guy is not going to be the right fit for me. And they could have been. So there is also a bit of that kind of personal judgment that you'd have to make. But definitely you'd want to align yourself with someone that's going to get you the outcome you want.
I kind of toyed around with this question in my head before, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer. But for example, if I want to come out there and if I'm engaging you for the very first time, it's on me as the client, right, to tell you, hey, I want to be, yes, I've got my eye on property X, but I also want to buy another property if I can within the next 2 years. That's on me, right? And it's not on you as the broker to come and ask me the question going, hey, you've come to me for finance for property ABC Smith Street, whatever it is. What are you planning on doing after that? Who do you kind of put the onus on there? And maybe it's a bit of a loaded question, but is that on the client to make sure they're giving you the context, or will you ask the question of the client?
I think it's actually more so on the broker.
Not the answer I was expecting.
Yeah,
tell me more.
I believe it's the broker's job to ask the right questions to extract that information from the client. Of course, if the client genuinely doesn't know, then they should go away and have a good think about it. So as an example, if we get a client call us and say, hey, what's my borrowing capacity? I'm like, I don't know, like that's too much of an open-ended question, right? Do you want to buy a home?
Yeah.
Do you want to buy an investment?
True.
If it's an investment, are you buying in personal name?
Yeah.
Are you buying in an entity?
Yeah.
As part of that calculation, if you buy an investment, we need to build in the rental income assumption. If you buy a $5 million property, the rent I'm going to build in could be different to a $500K property, right?
Yeah.
So how much can I borrow is too much of a broad question to give you an answer that's worthwhile looking at.
Yeah.
I might be able to just flick in a quick calculation, but is that actually the calculation that's going to be in line with genuinely what you're looking for when you then go to market?
Yeah.
So it is very much the broker's job to try to kind of drive that conversation and ask the questions to extract that. And most people deep down know, like we get a client first time engaging and they say, I want to buy an investment property. And I'm like, well, how much you want to buy for it? They're like, well, I don't know. It depends on how much you're going to borrow, which is fair. It is very much a chicken egg situation. But then I would push back and I'd say, well, let's just imagine finance is not a problem. And realistically speaking, so don't tell me a 25 mil apartment in Double Bay or something, or a house in Double Bay.
Yeah.
Realistically speaking, what do you want to do? And most clients know, like, and if they really don't know, like, let's say they're like, oh, I really don't know. It depends on what I borrow. I'm like, okay, what if I told you you can borrow 200,000? Would you go and buy it? And then most people are like, no, what can you buy for 200 grand? I'm like, oh, so you do know.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
You've got an idea.
You do have an idea.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what about 2 mil? They're like, no, I wouldn't want to ever buy something that expensive.
Scares
I'm
me,
like,
too much debt.
well, we're getting closer,
right?
Yeah. So then let's really try to narrow that down in terms of what you're actually thinking in the back of your mind. Because most people do have a rough idea.
Yeah.
I would say like 19 out of 20 would genuinely have a rough idea of what they want, whether it's a home, is it an apartment, what area they want to buy, is it a house, is it nicely renovated, is it run down, if it's an investment, what state, like that. Most people have a very rough idea, right? And then what we then try to do is once we've got that rough idea, we then say, well, this is what we're going to aim for initially, right? So let's say I spoke to Joey. Joey's like, look, I want to buy a house in Perth, 600 to 800K, right? So we will use that as a starting point. And the reason that starting point is important is, again, we want to make sure the assumptions we build in are going to be in line with what Joey looks at.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go use $2,000 a week rent for an 800K investment property, right? Yeah. And likewise, I'm not going to use $300 a week rent for an 800K high yielding property in Perth as an example. Yeah. So we want to make sure those assumptions are at the same time conservative, but more so tailored to Joey, not generic, right? Then from there, we would ideally hope we can find a solution for Joey that can get past that figure or to that figure. And if we can't, then at least we've got a starting point of, hey, this is what Joey wanted to see. Then we can scale back. We can do it 2 times, 3 times, adjust as needed, right? Yeah. Then on top of overlaying all of that, it's also then, in my opinion, quite important, as you're mentioning before, to then understand, well, let's imagine you've bought that property you want, that you're thinking of in the back of your mind. What's next, right? Are you going to buy a home in the future? Do you want to buy another investment? You're going to start a family, you're going to sack your missus, you know? And again, most people have a good idea what they actually want in the future. Yeah. And that information, again, is very important for the broker to understand, because if you came to me and said, hey, I want to buy 2 properties back to back ASAP, versus you just said, hey, and let's say I didn't know that, and I assumed you just wanted to buy one, how we structure that is going to be quite different. Yeah, like let's say you had limited deposit, we might have suggested to go for a lower deposit up front, so then you've got cash for the second. Yes. But that would be a pretty silly idea if you're just going to buy one and pay it off, right? Yeah. And again, that's what I mean, like, as if we understand the goal very clearly, then we should be able to put together a pathway that should be tailored to that goal. If we don't understand the goal, it's like we're just aiming blindlessly, driving without like a clear destination. Yeah. So when I have our initial client discussions, like a lot of it's just like data collection, and the reason it's for just to kind of get an idea, hey, is this going to be a client that can probably get a loan? But the main part of that conversation, which I think if you have with different people, like if you go to 3 different brokers or say 3 different banks, that the part of the discussion where I think could be quite different is really understanding the client's requirements. And sometimes clients are super clear. They're like, hey, this is exactly what I want to do. I've done this before. This is the solution I want. And that could be a 2-minute conversation. And sometimes that part of that conversation where a client's like, oh, I really don't know, that could be a 20-minute conversation.
Yeah.
And the bulk of the conversation is just extracting that information
from them.
So kind of back to your point, I do believe it's the broker's job to extract that, because if the client's a first timer, again, like you can't blame them for not really knowing. They're like, well, I was a client first time. I'm like, well, I don't know how much I can borrow. How do I know? Where should I go look? Right? Am I looking in Sydney? Am I looking in Brisbane? I've got no idea. But if the broker can kind of drive that conversation in a way, I guess, that can get that data out, I think you would then have a much more tailored solution, and you'll end up in a much better position in line with what the client's hoping for than just, hey, I want to buy a property for half a mil. Can I do it? Is the answer yes or no? Off we go.
Simple, see you later. Yeah. I think that's part of the power of, and you probably just heard Jordan there for the last couple of minutes, that is the reason why you need an investment savvy mortgage broker, for exactly what you've just gone and said then, right? And understand that. And obviously, especially for the first time buyer, and not even for the first time buyer, maybe you've already got 1 or 2 investment properties, what you think as a kind of strategy can pivot. And I know that's for myself personally, maybe for yourself over the journey as well. You kind of started out with your property nursing that you probably wouldn't buy today, for argument's sake, but it served you a purpose at that time. Looking back at some of the properties in my portfolio, would I have gone back and bought them again in hindsight? Maybe, maybe not. But obviously at the time, that was part of my strategy. At the time, that was part of your strategy. Obviously, as time goes by, you understand more, you learn more, then that pivots and changes as well. But there's always kind of that dynamic piece. And that's why it is critically important from my perspective as well, to make sure that you do have that trusted advisor on your side that understands you understand how they operate, because that always changes, that whole kind of finance strategy piece.
100%. And I think that's also maybe back to your point about a bank versus a broker. That is another massive benefit of using a broker. So a lot of brokers, or I would say most brokers in Australia, would be somewhat like on a similar self-employed style model, either as a contractor running their own thing. And I'm sure you'd agree, if you're an employee at a bank versus it's your own business, the amount of effort you'd probably put in
very different.
Should be somewhat different. You'd hope so, right?
Yeah.
And if it's your own business, assuming you're doing somewhat well, you'd also fairly assume that broker may be there for longer of your journey, or hopefully the whole journey, than say someone who's climbing the ranks.
Yeah, transient. Right? They're going to be there for 18 months, and then all of a sudden they've gone up into an executive manager role, and you don't see them anymore.
Correct. Yeah. And then which then means you meet someone else who could be great.
Yeah, I've never thought of that.
Who could be average.
Yeah.
And then you need to build that whole relationship again, right? They don't know your past. They don't know where Joey is today.
That's really, really good.
How do they know about, well, where did Joey start X amount of years? So when I met you, you had 2, right? Yeah. But if you imagine you used the broker from day 1, they would have known literally your first purchase, right?
Yeah.
So at least I still came in somewhat early.
Yeah.
It would have been better if I came in at the start, even though I wasn't working in the same industry at the time. But if you had gone to a banker, they might have helped you for that transaction. Then by the time you go back to the banker, they might still be there. But then what if they've been promoted? And most of the time, you'd want a good banker.
So which probably also going
means
to be
someone who's good at their job is probably going to
really
climb the ranks,
I've
right?
never thought of that
Whereas
before.
if you have a good broker and they're good at their job and it's their own thing, they're probably just going to keep being a good broker.
Yeah, they'll stay the course.
Yeah, and that's what, like as a business, that's what we aim for. We aim for like lifelong relationships. Hopefully if I kind of make it there.
Yep.
But yeah, we want to be there from the time they buy their very first or getting ready to buy their first all the way up to hopefully when they buy properties for their grandkids or something.
Yeah, that's
equivalent.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really, really excellent.
Yeah, it's a big piece. And knowing that history, like if we use it as an example, is very powerful because we know how we structured your debt from this bank to then that bank to then this. Like if I just came in, I'd be like, hey, Joey, what's all of this stuff? And you would have to explain it to me.
I don't even really know my own story, to be honest. I go, I don't know, you did it, you know.
Now, for someone who's got one property, one loan, that may not be too difficult.
Yeah.
But when you've got multiple properties, you've got multiple splits, different purposes because you paid some off, you sold one, you reallocated or repurposed debt, you want someone who has all that data on you.
Yeah.
So then when you go back to the next, you don't really have to kind of explain everything, right?
That's really powerful.
And very powerful. Yeah. Very, very powerful.
I think we might because I want to kind of get into a few more topics, but I'm just going to leave that as a bit of a teaser for the time being. We might wrap that up there for the end of Ep 1. We're going to get Jordan back again in a couple of episodes' time to start to chat a little bit more around some kind of borrowing capacity, loan structuring pieces there as well. So thanks so much for Ep 1. We'll see you again.
Thanks, Joey.
See you, mate.